Hello everyone, my name is Angelica Isaac, and in our group we have Vin Hune, Jamie Jean, Brian Cosio, and Brando Grant. And we are group 5, and the topic of our presentation is evaluating critical security issues of the IoT world, present and future challenges. Before we get started, here is some information about the publication. The article name is Evaluating Critical Security Issues of the IoT World, Present and Future Challenges. It was published on IEEE Internet of Things Journal, Volume 5, Number 4 in August 2018. And the authors are Mario Frustasi, Pasquale Pace, Gianluca Aloi, and Giancarlo Fortino. Today, our group will be going over the introduction to the topic, threats in IoT system model, trust in the IoT world, IoT security, issues and security solutions for IoT communication protocols, critical issues and future directions, our critiques on the publishment, and the conclusion. What is Internet of Things? The Internet of Things, or IoT, refers to the billions of physical devices around the world that are connected to the Internet, collecting and sharing data. Some common examples of IoT devices can be driverless cars, wearables such as Apple Watch or Fitbit, and smart homes. As the use of IoT becomes popular in our everyday lives, it is important to note the security and privacy challenges that IoT faces. The lack of standards has created vulnerabilities in IoT devices, leading to serious security issues. Another important concern is with privacy. As we use IoT devices in our everyday lives, it should be known that they are constantly collecting personal data. Overall, this research paper discusses common security threats the IoT world is facing, and also describes how security must be correctly designed to support the IoT model. In the picture shown above, we have a generic Internet of Things model with 3 different layers. The first layer is the perception layer. This layer is related to the physical IoT sensors to support data collection and composes of devices, sensors, and controllers. The connected devices are what enables the IoT environment. Example of this includes GPS technology, RFID technology, and WSN technology. The next layer shown is a transportation layer. This layer provides access to the environment for the perception layer. This layer transmits any information received from the perception layer to an information processing system through existing communication networks such as 4G, Wi-Fi, ad hoc network, and the internet. And lastly, we have the third layer, which is the application layer. This layer provides the services requested by the users and determines a set of protocols for message passing at the application level. Now that we have gone over the several layers of the Internet of Things model, I will now go over the specific security threats each layer faces. And now I'll be going over the specific security threats in regards to the perception layer. First on the list we have physical attacks, and this will involve the hardware components. So for these kinds of attacks, the attacker needs to be physically close or into the IoT system in order to have these attacks working. 2 examples of physical attacks include node tampering, and this is when the attacker causes damage to a sensor node by physically replacing the entire node or part of its hardware. And then they will then gain access and alter sensitive information. And the other example is malicious code injection. This is when the attacker comprises a node by physically injecting it with malicious code. Next on the list we have impersonation. This is done by having a malicious node that allows the use of a fake identity, where the attacker will then conduct a malicious attack. Third on the list is denial of service attacks. And this is when the attacker exploits the processing ability of the nodes, making them unavailable. For routing attacks, this involves intermediate malicious nodes, which might modify the right routing paths during the data collection and forwarding process. And last, we have the data transit attacks. These are various attacks on the confidentiality and integrity during data transit. Examples of this is packet sniffing and man in the middle. For security threats in regards to the transportation layer, we have three notable security risks, which are routing attacks, denial of service attacks, and data transit attacks, which were three security risks we also saw in the perception layer. So for the routing attack, it is having a malicious node which might modify the right routing paths during the data collection and forwarding process. For the denial of service attacks, we see this because of the complexity of an IoT network. The transportation layer can be vulnerable. And for data transit attacks, there can be various attacks on the integrity during the data transit and access or core networks. For security threats in regards to the application layer, we first have data leakage. And this is when the attacker can easily steal data. And this can include user personal data such as usernames, passwords, credit card information. And this is when they know vulnerabilities of the service or application. Next, we have a denial of service attack. Attackers can destroy the availability of the application or service itself and bring it down. And last, we have malicious code injection, where attackers can upload malicious codes into software applications exploiting the known vulnerabilities. And now for the critique for this section, which was Threats in Internet of Things System Model. The authors did a good job at highlighting the critical security threats for their overall Internet of Things architecture, and also outlined the specific security threats that each layer faces and why they face them. The authors were able to explain the threats in a clear and understanding way for the reader to understand. The authors could have provided more real-world examples exemplifying the security threats, and they could have also gone over how often these threats happen.
Hello everyone, my name is Vin and I'll be presenting Trust in the IoT world. Here's a brief outline about what I'll be going over in this section. What is trust? Trust in IoT, trust properties, importance of trust, and trust management goals. So what is trust? According to changeminds.org, trust is both emotional and logical act. Emotional act because you expose your vulnerabilities to people but believing they will not take advantage of your openness. Logical act because you have access the probabilities of gain and loss and conclude that the person in question will behave in a predictable manner. Trust in IoT. The development of trust mechanism is important for people to overcome perceptions of uncertainty and risk in using IoT services and applications. It is key to establish social relationships between unknown entities. There are two important concepts. The first one is security. IoT services and applications must ensure system security and user safety. The second one is privacy. It's the ability to determine whether, when, and to whom information about itself is to be released or disclosed. In the previous slides, I say trust is the key in establishing social relationship between unknown entities. It is because IoT devices mimic autonomously the social behavior of their human counterparts according to the owner's social network and build up social relationship with other trust devices in order to provide services to the humans. Trust properties divided into 5 categories. The first one is trusty objective. For example, a trusty security, dependability, and privacy uh, preservation. Next one is trusty subjective. For example, trusty honesty, benevolence, and goodness. Next one is trusters subjective, um, such as truster disposition and willingness to trust. Um, the fourth one is truster objective. It's the criteria or policy specified by the truster for the trust decision. The last one is context. Context is the situation or environment in which the entities operate. Trust is different depends on the context. Um, why is trust important in IoT? It's because it offers many advantages. Here are the five main ones. Uh, certainty in collaboration. Well, to understand certainty, we need to go over what is uncertainty. Uncertainty is originated basically from two sources: information asymmetry. Um, this means a partner does not have all information it needs about others. The other one is opportunism. Partners have different goals. Another advantage is uniform decision making for heterogeneous IoT. Um, IoT support across multiple IoT domains based on trust chain technology. Another advantage is excellent flexibility. It has the ability to deal with changeable security conditions and personalized security requests. For instance, we can define personalized policy for each node that we own. Another advantage is better efficiency, um, because it has to be lightweight due to energy constraint. For example, for the routing process, sensor nodes might need to know which other nodes to trust when forwarding a package, so as to choose whether to send the information either through the fastest link or to the nodes that have spent less energy. The last advantage is compatibility between trust and security. Assist and or take advantage of other security protocols mechanism. Um, for example, key management, intrusion detection system, and privacy. In trust management goal, there are two categories. The first one is layer goals, and the second one is cross-layer goals. In the layer goals, we have data perception trust. This means reliable data sensing and collection um, is in the perception layer, as you can see in the table on the right. The next one is data communication trust. This is secure data transmission. It's in the perception and transportation layer. The next one is data fusion and mining trust. This means trustworthy in data processing and analyzing. Um, this is in the application level layer. The next one is quality of IoT services. This means ensure to only here, only me, and only now services. This in the application level. The last one is human-computer trust interaction. This is support usability using IoT services. This in the application layer. In the cross-layer goals, we have generality. It requires generic IoT system and services in order to widely apply. The next one is trust, relationship, and decision. Achieve best decision for intelligent and autonomous trust management by using trust relationship evaluation for all IoT entities. The next one is system security and robustness. It is fundamental to gain user confidence. Next one is privacy preservation. User privacy must be preserved according to user policy. The last one is identity trust. Entities' identities should be well managed in a trustworthy way. I personally like how they make it easier for the reader to understand by breaking out concepts into classes or categories and explaining it even further. Also, examples are given alongside with complex concepts. Um, there's only one thing that I didn't like about this section, that because there's a little graphical representation That's mostly just words. And I think that's conclude the trust in the IoT world section. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jamie, and I'll be discussing IoT security. Security in IoT is often neglected and treated as an afterthought from the IoT manufacturers. The main reason behind this are the time to market and cost reduction driving the device design and development process. One of the things that IoT developers don't understand is the need time to fully comprehend the large enterprise cybersecurity playbook. The cybersecurity playbook consists of three parts. Part 1, Scouting Report. Profiles for 10 of the most common threats an organization should be prepared to face. Part 2, the game plan. A practical step-by-step process for making an organization more secure. Part 3, looking downfield. Set the organization for success both now and in the long run as threats tend to evolve. Over the next few slides, I'll be discussing the security triad. The security triad is a distinguished model for the development of security mechanisms. It implements the security by using three main areas: data confidentiality, integrity, and availability. As you can see, there's a picture describing the cycle that the three main areas go through. Data confidentiality. This is the ability to provide confidence to the user about the privacy of sensitive information using different mechanisms so that its disclosure to the unauthorized party is prevented and can be accessed by the authorized users only. Data confidentiality is usually supported with different mechanisms such as data encryptions or access control. Examples are passwords, social security numbers, license number, all information that must remain confidential to prevent identity theft. Data integrity refers to the protection of useful information from the cyber criminals or the external interference during data transit or rest through some common methods like data integrity algorithms, preventing data alterations. An example of data integrity would be not allowing a string to be an input for an integer value in code. Data availability ensures the immediate access of an authorized party to their information resources not only in a normal condition but also in disastrous conditions. An example is a simple firewall. A strong point that was made in the article is focusing the attention on the software-based protection schemes often leaves the hardware unintentionally vulnerable, allowing for new attacks. This is based on assumption that embedded devices are not attractive to targets to hackers. Embedded devices are not vulnerable to attacks, or authentication encryption provide adequate protection for embedded devices. These assumptions are no longer valid. The number and sophistication of attacks against embedded devices continue to rise. Greater security measures are needed. In this slide, I'll be discussing traditional IT versus IoT. A traditional IT would be your desktop or laptop, while your IoT would be your phone or Apple Watch. A traditional IT has add-on security, so it allows you to add firewall to your laptop, such as Avast or NordVPN. It has complex algorithms such as RSA or AES 56 or 512. It also has user control, so you have full control of the laptop. It has multi-technological heterogeneity, it has many security guards, and they're usually located in a closed environment. While your phone has built-in security, so what you have is what you get. It has lightweight algorithm for resource-constrained devices, so it has algorithms such as Proton or Present, which are nowhere near as secure as RSA or AES. Also has privacy issues because IoTs often collect automatically user private information such as your credit card number or your house address. It also has large technological heterogeneity and thus also large attack surfaces. It has few security guards, and IoT devices are usually located in open environments. Now, a closed environment is when the majority of the network sensor system operates largely within the device, such as airplanes, vehicles, and ships. One open environment is having the network sensor system connect to a cloud and send data to that cloud. But by doing so, it allows a hacker to easily separate between Multi-layer and cross-layer security. According to the IoT system model, security must be developed in different layers, and each layers have built-in mechanisms. Here are some basic mechanisms that each layers must consider. Hardware security. Using cryptographic processors or anti-tampering technologies, chips or memory protection, or self-destruction, etc. Access control and authentication system. To prevent the access to IoT nodes, sensor nodes, or applications from unauthorized users. Clear encryption mechanisms. Guaranteed by symmetric and asymmetric encryption algorithms that should be used during data transit and storage, such as HTTPS. Secure routing. Ensure the correct route discovery, also building and maintaining targets, even when network threats and attacks happen. Risk assessment. Discovering new system threats, preventing security breaches, and determining the best security strategies. Intrusion detection system. To detect local and network intrusion, it is also useful to have denial of service attack detection and prevention mechanisms. Anti-malware solution. Detect and prevent malicious code update in the device firmware or in service or the application itself. Firewall to block unauthorized hosts. Trust management system to ensure that the security goals are enforced and the security mechanisms are successfully deployed. In this context, it is extremely useful to ensure the credibility in the relationships among the IoT devices or between the devices and the users. Now for the critique. This section gave a broad overview of IoT security and did a good job highlighting the difference between IoT security and traditional IoT security. It also properly described the CIA of the security triad model: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Then to go on to discuss the multi-layer and cross-layer security for IoT system in depth. But most importantly, it recognizes the necessity to consider an IoT system as a whole system, and that security can be thought of as a chain that is robust as much as its weakest link, which is true. So, and I didn't really think of any negative critique for this section. I thought it was pretty well written, and it was truly in depth, and I learned a lot from it. So,
Hello, this is Brian Kozel. I'll be talking about the issues and security solutions for IoT communication today. So, to begin with, of course, we know secure communications means we want to ensure from point A to point B that we have these messages completely secure. And to this, of course, we have to rely on secure communication protocols. As we've gone over before, we talked about data confidentiality, data reliability, and data availability. One more that I'd want to add that's more relevant to these secure communications is data authenticity. So, do we know that a piece of data is actually from the person that we think it's from? Um, and to go into these secure communications, we divide up into three different layers. We have the physical access, which you can think of like wireless or wired communications. You have network, where we route data packet from node A to node B. And then you have the service and application, which for IoT is more like working on messaging and other small applications. So an important thing to note about all of these communication levels is that there are various data transit attacks at each level, and there's always some risk that it could be a passive attack. Somebody could be listening in. They could be trying to decrypt any kind of message you have, and then there could also be an active attack where somebody's actually trying to send messages between parties, act as a man in the middle attack. These are just a few examples, and to really secure against these attacks, we need really a form of encryption to make sure that data is encrypted. It can't be, it just looks like garbage data to anybody that's trying to eavesdrop. And we also have to make sure it's authentication, that the party that we receive a message from is really the party that we are talking to and we expect. And so two pretty typical solutions. One is AES-CCM. So this is a advanced encryption standard mode that provides both authentication and encryption, best of both worlds. And then TLS and SSL are two communication protocols. You can have like a handshake, and they really establish a secure communication. One more note about TLS and SSL is that they generally require very math-heavy algorithms. So if you've heard of RSA, Diffie-Hellman, including elliptic curve cryptography, these can be very heavy, and small IoT devices might not have the space or hardware resources necessary to compute these in a reasonable amount of time. So to go into our first go into our first level. Of course, we have the wireless level for IoT devices. We're more worried about sending from node A to node B, and so in this paper they gave four standards. You probably recognize all of them except the IEEE number, but these are all define a wireless method of communication. So we have Bluetooth Low Energy, you have Wi-Fi, and then LTE, of course. This layer does include wired, but generally for IoT devices, we're not as concerned with wired networks because that will get very messy very quickly. Okay, so here I'll start with the physical access layer, also labeled as the MAC layer in this paper. And as I've gone over before, you can expect different data transit attacks. You have eavesdropping, where, say, a wireless node, you're just kind of listening into a channel. You can jam a wireless, kind of like force it to let its messages and get through. At the MAC level, you can also impersonate a MAC that doesn't exist. You can steal someone else's MAC address. You can act as a man in the middle, and you can also try to forge your own network commands and packets and try to disrupt the network that way. And so going into each of our four protocols, IEEE was closest to Zigbee, Bluetooth Low Energy, Wi-Fi, and LTE. Each of these, the secure solutions generally include some form of AES actually. So AES CCM, as I said before, encryption and authentication is a good solution for the IEEE and Bluetooth Low Energy. The black network solution is a new method to obfuscate any header and metadata information, as if you leak that, it can be very valuable to an eavesdropper. Wi-Fi, these are protocols that are pretty well known. I definitely recommend WPA2 for Wi-Fi. It does use AES unlike the other previous ones, and their LTE is perhaps one of the newest ones. So generally they're pretty secure. Okay, next we have the network level. This would be where you route packets between nodes. So the main data transit attacks you could expect on this level is, again, IP spoofing, where you just create a fake identity for fake IP address. You can hijack somebody else's IP address, or there's this thing called a Smurf attack, where you kind of overload the network by sending many messages between nodes, and it won't be able to handle this. So of the protocols, you're probably most familiar with IP v4 and v6 is the new towards the future. And to really keep this secure, you just got to use secure communication protocols. IPsec is the main one. The other two network protocols, 6LoWPAN and RPL, the routing protocol for low power and lossy networks, these were more towards the IoT, and there are still definitely data transit attacks in here and denial of service, so you want to make sure that your packet actually gets to where it needs to be. And many of these are new, only a few versions of them have been standardized, so there's still some debate what would be the best solution. Okay, at the application level, there are two main primary protocols for IoT, the MQTT and the CoAP protocols. And between these, there's a trade-off between header size, some power consumption, how much data is lost, but overall they're well suited for more constrained applications. The data transit attacks here are more general. Again, I included spoofing and hijacking. This is just a machine-to-machine data communication, so it's not like email, it's not like you're doing a database. So it's much simpler, but again, you're still at risk for these attacks. So the MQTT, this is a publisher-subscriber model. In the standardized version that uses TLS, and as I said before, this is very heavy. A lot of large cryptographic units that aren't well suited for constrained environments. And so like we've been proposed this new secure MQTT solution, which has attribute-based encryption, and this has some elliptic curve cryptography stuff, some nice solutions. It helps key management, and it definitely reduces the amount of computation I need for TLS. The CoAP protocol, again, this protocol was originally designed with a very heavy DTLS, datagram TLS protocol, and the LITH solution is more designed to reduce the heavy cost and also the time for the handshake of the DTLS. So these are still under works, and hopefully we'll get a nice solution with these soon. But again, this is still a very ongoing, active development area. So overall, personally, I didn't really like this section as much. There was a ton of different protocols, different layers, all kind of in one big table. This is nice in that it was like a big survey of, so what's currently available, what's being worked on, what are these security holes that we need to fill. But it's, again, going over breadth rather than going very deep. So you have many protocols. You might not have heard of some of them. I know I didn't hear of these more IoT-based protocols. And when I was reviewing this section, I really had to go to other papers, see like, okay, what is this protocol? What is your solution to really handle this? And so I would have liked more outlook on like where the industry is going. It just was hard for me to get much from just this paper on this section.
With the rapid development of the Internet of Things, its security problems have become more concentrated. This section addresses the security issues of the Internet of Things system model. The perception layer can be classified as the highest security risk level for physical exposure of Internet of Things devices because of hardware limitations and technological heterogeneity that limit the implementation of effective security measures. On the other side, the transportation layer is classified as lower risk due to intensive research on the vulnerabilities and the continuous development of new protection. The application layer has a variable level of risk, but has more mature technology, less threats, and already tested security methods compared to perception layer. Moving along to the critical security issues identification area. The perception layer needs to address hardware insecurity of Internet devices, lack of lightweight cryptographic algorithms and effective key management, lack of lightweight trust management system, insecure routing protocols, and lack of lightweight anti-malware solutions. On the other hand, the transportation layer needs to solve physical wireless insecurity and distributed denial of service attacks issues. Finally, the application layer needs to address common application vulnerabilities and privacy protection issues. Moving along to critical security issues evaluation area. The primary goal is to evaluate critical security issues by presenting them as intrinsic vulnerabilities of the Internet of Things systems. Basically, applying a mathematical approach using the National Infrastructure Advisory Council methodology called Common Vulnerability Scoring System, or CVSS, can assess the severity of computer system security vulnerabilities. These scores calculate the ease of exploit and the impact of the exploit. CVSS offers important benefits, such as identifying hardware insecurity and common application vulnerabilities, lack of lightweight anti-malware, and distributed denial of service attacks. Overall, this section gives a condensed analysis of critical security issues in the world of Internet of Things. One of the positive aspects is the flow of information that anchored on each layer's vulnerabilities in the Internet of Things system model, followed by identifying several issues and ended with an in-depth evaluation. Also, this paper created a bridge between each analysis to secure the reader's attention. On the other hand, this paper lightly explained subtopics, used minimal examples, and totally left out a detailed list explaining the possible values for base metrics with subscores. The authors took a one-sided approach when explaining the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, CVSS. For example, the temporal score that calculates how threat actors are actually exploiting a vulnerability, and the environmental score that reevaluates the metrics defining the base score, were left out.
To conclude our presentation, it is important to consider the critical security and privacy risks as the IoT industry is rapidly growing. Keeping this in mind, it is necessary to enforce trust management and proper security protocols in the IoT world. We went over the various layers of the IoT model and found that the perception layer is the most vulnerable due to the physical exposure of IoT devices. For future decisions, we must work on these security issues faced in the IoT world and begin implementing the proper security solutions.